So my first New Zealand workaway was coming to an end. I had managed to line up the second one the day after it, and I was a bit worried I wouldn't be able to hitch in time, but luckily a Kiwi called Dave got me to the ferry in time. My accommodation for my workaway wasn't ready, so they lined up a hostel for me, and it was so cool. This is the tree house, and it had dormitories, the kitchen, the common area and a chill area. And this is my room, a converted camper van. I spent my time mainly doing gardening and general helping, and also walked the dog, who was lovely. The lady was a Kiwi and she was married to an Italian, and she was an amazing cook. Soon afterwards I was able to move into their holiday accommodation, which was the next level of luxury. I had a flat all to myself. This is some footage I actually recorded for my family back home, where they were celebrating Christmas. Hello everybody, Merry Christmas. I thought it'd be easier to make a video because I might not be able to Skype, but I will give you a little update of my travels so far, and I'll give you a brief tour of where I'm currently living at the moment. So yeah, I'm currently drying my tent. It's a bike I borrowed in the person's laundry. So this is a holiday cottage. There's the shower and laundry and bed of paradise, which I've been looking after. So I've been doing some gardening. So it's kitchen, living space, double bedroom, my room, and then the view I have. Yippee! On my days off, I go wandering to the nearby woodland. I had access to a bike, so that was great. I think one of the things I enjoyed most was having some solo downtime. I was able to catch up on my journal. For a long time, I've been wanting to gain experience on a boat, so I ended up googling this, which led me to a website called crewbay.com, which is where you can find work on a boat, and boats can find some crew. Since I have absolutely zero experience of life at sea, my profile was super basic, and all I could offer was a positive attitude, hard working, and I would work for free in exchange for travel and experience. So I ended up helping fix this boat, which had been stuck in this yard for quite some time. Thankfully, I wasn't the only novice, so I was joined by a German guy called Fabio. Between us two and the skipper, we managed to fix the boat and head out to sea. I think when we were leaving the yard, I did notice all the yard hands pleased to see the boat leaving. Turns out the skipper, he was pleasant enough, but very opinionated, which is fine, but not okay, if you don't share his thoughts. He was also a bit sexist. He would ask if my male friend back in the UK funded my lifestyle out here, and of course he didn't ask that of the German guy. He also had very little patience with us about our lack of boat knowledge and how to dislike the English people, which made it a little awkward at times, but however, his arrogance aside, he was incredibly knowledgeable and self-sufficient, and for me to experience that boat life was incredible. I love that the fact that it's so low impact and you just travel the world for free essentially, as long as you can get the boat and get everything in place. The boat was amazing, despite the guy. Fabio was also a good laugh. I remember one night waking to the sound of splashing. I remember sitting up and thinking it was my imagination. And then 10 seconds later I had someone clamber back on board. I asked him in the morning, he said that he got up to use the bathroom, but accidentally banged his head and fell off half asleep. He's very lucky he didn't drown. So we travelled around for a week or so, leaving Whangarei and exploring the nearby islands. But to be honest, we were relieved to be off that boat. I remember we did shake hands with the guy, and we ended on polite terms, but we did dash away. By this point it was Christmas Eve. Fabio had a car, and he was able to drop me off on the Te Araroa trail. But my plan was to hike to a nice spot and spend Christmas Day reading. I ended up hiking past a Maori family, and we got talking. The father was curious of all the hikers that would hike past, and I explained the trail to him, and he asked where I was going to stay that night. I was going to stay in a pub in the next village, and he suggested I should camp in their front garden, so I thought, sure, why not? So I ended up spending the night and Christmas Day with them. He showed me all their land, all their animals, and the nearby river, and explained a bit of the history, which is super interesting. And he also showed me a hanig, which is when you kind of dig a hole, put rocks in it, heat them up, and you bury it, and it's like it becomes a pit oven. So you wrap up your meat, your vegetables in tin foil, and put them in it and bury it. And it was so delicious. And all their family turned up and ordered karaoke. And I ended up staying another night before they dropped me off at a good hitching spot. But before they did, they gave me a Maori blessing by the river, and they also gave me a Maori whistle. Next I hitchhiked to Hamilton. I ended up sleeping in the park. I remember sleeping through my alarm, and I woke up soon after 8 AM, which was pretty late. I'm not sure why I was super tired. Even the night before, I remember reading my book in the park and falling asleep and waking up to a glorious sunset. That night I booked a hostel, which was luxurious again, and I decided to post on a box of my items such as my laptop and other things onwards towards my parents' friends in Invercargill, which happens to be where I used to live. So whilst in Hamilton, I decided I'd check out the gardens, and it's free to enter and it's so peaceful to wander around. That night I slept in the park, which was right next to the gardens. I hitched a Rotorua. I got a lift from a trucker called Keith. It's actually quite cool to be in a truck which are quite high up, and obviously he spends a lot of his time driving on the road, and he'd point out all the fancy cars which we'd pass. So he got me halfway there, and then they got a ride off a 17-year-old girl, and I was her first hitchhiker. Once I got to Rotorua, I walked to the treeway walkway, which are these massive redwoods. And from there I disappeared higher up into the mountains, and I found this lovely hiking trail. And I slept beside this lake. It's probably one of the most peaceful night's sleep I've ever had. And then in the morning I just bimbled back down and enjoyed the day really. From Rotorua I hitched to Taupo, and this is when I got a hitch in a Tesla. It was really cool. I remember they pulled over and I went to reach for the door handle, but it wasn't there, and then all of a sudden it just kind of emerged from the door. So yeah, that was really cool. And and there was a massive touchscreen in the front, and the roof was see-through. So yeah, no, that was really cool. I remember we pulled over, and because they wanted to see how quick it jumped from like 0 to 60. But yeah, we were thrown back into our seats, and there were 4 of us in that car. So in Taupo, I camped next to the river, where I rinsed my clothes and I slept. Today is the 31st of December, New Year's Eve. My plan was to hike the Tongario trail on New Year's Day. So from Taupo, I walked 8 miles out of town to the highway, and I waited about 7 minutes before I got a hit from a couple driving from Whanganui. I followed the Tongario River and camped off a little dirt track, and I remember waking up at 4 AM and seeing a massive spider crawling down the outside of my tent. I get quite lazy. If it's not going to rain, then I normally don't pitch my tent, but if there's bugs and mosquitoes around, then I normally just put up the inner. And in this case, I saw this spider crawling down the inner of my tent. Obviously I didn't know if it was on the outside of my inner or the inside of the inner. I tried to find where it went, but I couldn't find it. So yeah, that was a bit not unnerving, but that was interesting. So New Year's Day finds me hiking along the road, trying to get to the start of the Tongario crossing. I tried to hitchhike, but I think because I'm in the middle of nowhere, people are a bit suspicious of me. I'm still 8 miles from the start. I mean, even if I hike fast, I'll still be starting the hike at 10, which is super late, so I start to try and hitchhike. A couple of cars go by, no one picks me up, and then luckily a couple pick me up, and they're from the Netherlands. She was a lawyer and he was an engineer, and he'd come to New Zealand on a 3-week holiday trying to cram as much in as possible. And I think I'll end this video here. Tune into the next one to see if I make it up and over the mountain in time.